Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jason Camelli. I'm from the Office of Global Initiatives at Berkeley, and I'm here with my colleague, co-producer Ray Soul, and we are so excited to have all of you here. We've got some special guests joining us from across the world. We're going to talk about the modern music of Egypt today in this session of Global Connections. This session is being recorded, and we are going to have this online for you to check out later. So for those of you that are joining us, you'll be able to go back and take a listen and watch it. And also, if you've got friends or students, colleagues that might have missed the opportunity to jump in and check this out, then obviously we can share the link out to them and they can go and take a listen as well. This is the first, I hope, in maybe a series of sessions on the music of Egypt, the music from this region. And this is a Zoom session. Zoom rules apply. We're going to get into a conversation. We're going to open it up for questions and answers as we go along. But in the early part of the session, just keep yourselves on mute or keep the background noise down so that we can hear everything that our guests have to say. And what I'd like to do is, first of all, for my part, learning about the music, especially in Egypt, is very new. And for some of us on the call, I see some people from all over the world joining us. It might be for you as well. So, I really appreciate the artists that are joining us today, the Berkeley alums and other folks that are going to jump in on this discussion. In the chat, if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us, for those of you that are guests in the session, if you're a musician, what do you play? What kinds of music are you into? And from what part of the world are you connecting from? So I know earlier on somebody said they're from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Thank you, very nice. But others, please, drop your details in here so that our guests can also see where you're from and what kinds of music you're into as well. Very nice. Yep, keep throwing that in there. It'll be great. So to kick things off for this session, what I'd like to do first is to introduce kind of like the person that really helped us to put this together. He's currently a Berkeley student, and we connected on social media, and I learned that he's actually currently the only student from Egypt at our campus in Boston. And it kind of like motivated Ray and I to kind of open a conversation with him and figure out, well, let's learn more about what you're doing as an artist and the music from where you come from, and, open this up to the community. So Yassin El Noshokaty is a 20-year-old Egyptian film composer. He's got a passion for, all kinds of music, been playing, piano since an early age. He was, self-taught, but he's obviously been working his butt off and doing incredible work, writing for music, but also for much bigger soundscapes. And his music is, it's really coming from his voice. And I think when you get a chance to go and listen to his music, you'll start to hear like a lot of different sounds and ideas coming through. And a lot of it comes from, his your love of sort of like rock music, alternative bands, everything from like Mono to Pink Floyd to like other sounds, but also the classical music tradition, the film world. So it kind of like runs the panorama. He's worked on several movies, including like Section B, which is a short documentary made by UNICEF about immigration crisis in Greece. So you can check out his work there. And he's currently studying, obviously, with us at Berkeley. And, he's really interested in following in the footsteps of some of his heroes, like, Alan Silvestri, Howard Shore, folks like that. So, Yassin, if you could, would you drop in, the link where people could check out your music in the chat? And welcome to Yassin.
Hello, guys. It's good to have you guys here. It's amazing. Thank you all for coming, of course. So I'll try to make this kind of short. So I grew up in Egypt, and I've been playing like piano since I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, because my dad had a piano at my place when I was young. But I never really took any kind of education, only because we don't really have the means to have good music education in Egypt. But I've always wanted to come here to Berkeley, and I knew it was kind of challenging for a lot of reasons. One of them is financial reasons, like a lot of reasons, but the culture is also very different. So it was very challenging, but at the same time, it was what I've been waiting for since I was a kid, And then after coming here, I feel like the amount of opportunities that I've received at Berkeley just by being like social enough to talk to people or like meet people, it was amazing. Like people here are very welcoming. The environment is amazing, and I also got to like collaborate with all these amazing artists that I don't think I would have met anywhere else in the world. So my kind of work, I'm a film composer. I've worked with UNICEF, Gillette, Sennheiser. I did a short film with Liam Neeson last summer. And in most of these projects, the people who are playing the music are actually Berkeley students. And everyone here is like, as I was saying, they're very friendly. They like everyone tries to help each other. It's like a very, very healthy environment in a way. And it's also very welcoming. So like being the only Egyptian here, I was kind of worried about like, okay, like if like there's no countryman I can kind of just speak to or like my own name, something like that. But everyone, it was just amazing. So that's me.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you. This is great. It's great that you have plugged into this community and network at Berkeley. And we'll talk more about this in the session, and that you're, bringing people into your creativity and your projects. And this is a big part of what the Berkeley community is about in the larger community. And speaking of that, we have another special guest with us who's a graduate of Berkeley, who's currently out on the West Coast, living and working. He's an Egyptian singer, songwriter, and producer. His background comes from the traditional music in Egypt, but obviously it's expanded and grown and been influenced by all the things that he's been, experiencing throughout his life. He got his bachelor's degree at the Arabic Music Institute in Cairo, and then went on to Berkeley, where he worked on music production and arranging. And since being in the United States, he's had the chance to work with artists such as Carole King, Jason Mraz, and I remember this. You had the opportunity to have your music performed at Boston Symphony Hall, and accompanied by performed by the Boston Pops Orchestra, which is incredible. I'd like to welcome Ahmad El Haggar. Ahmed, thanks for joining us, man.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for putting this together. Jason, Ray, thank you so much. Yassin, the effort, it's so amazing. Mosalem, think the music is awesome. This is the first time I
Thank
heard
you.
your music. I'm sorry I didn't hear it earlier.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Beautiful, beautiful. It really, really
Thank
great. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So tell us, what are you doing in LA these days? What's going on besides it being incredibly hot?
Not as hot as Egypt. Well, LA,
Thank you for that.
LA's been great. Most of the time I've been teaching, I've been singing, I've been doing a lot of basically if there is a film or a trailer and they need a brown voice, I'm the brown voice. I'm the the ethnic sort of voice for these for these trailers or movies, and it's been incredible. But this event is happening at a very interesting time because I'm actually moving back to Egypt. So maybe
Really?
maybe that could be a topic of its own.
Yes, we can totally get into that. Wow.
But yeah, so yeah, the experience from Berkeley has been incredible. As you mentioned before, like I did study more of a traditional music situation back in Egypt, and that was its own thing. I don't want to. I mean, it was just different. It was a very different experience, and Berkeley really just gave me the tools to express myself artistically in a different way, and it's an amazing place. It really is.
Got it, man. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we really appreciate you being part of this discussion. We did drop in your SoundCloud link, and I really honestly recommend everybody here, please go and check out his music. It's beautiful. The writing, the production, the nuance to it. It's you've got a killer sound, man. It's so great to hear you and get introduced to what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we also wanted to connect in with an artist who is active in the Egyptian music scene right now, so we can get perspective on what's happening there, somebody that knows the music on the ground, and bring that into the conversation, as well as all of your voices here. I see that there are some artists in the session here that will also be able to contribute. This gentleman's a rapper and producer. He goes under the name of Mosalem. He's been doing it for a few years now. His name Mosalem is for those of you, it means peaceful in Arabic, but it's also his radio handle because he's a radio DJ. He's dabbling in this, this Egyptian rap style, but he's pairing it with singing and harmonies in the background. And as you heard on this track, the production is just killing. It sounds amazing, and we're so honored to have you with us today, Mosalem. Thank you for joining us. He's sitting outside his new place in his car in the air conditioning.
My AC's broken. I'm moving house again. I'm very, very happy to be here. I appreciate all you guys' efforts for putting this together. Big thank you to Yassin as well for wanting to reach out to the homeland. It's very important, and as he said, it's just wonderful to be here, man. You want like a little intro of mine?
Yeah, could you share a little bit about, for us, what would be really interesting to know is because where Yassin and Ahmed have come and studied at Berkeley,
Yeah.
you're digging into this music. You're self-taught. You're creating. How do you go from where you are to where you are now with this amazing music?
Yeah, well, much like Yassin, like I didn't have any sort of prior like musical knowledge. I wasn't really taught instruments really, but I come from a home of poets, and everybody wrote in my household. So it was really the penmanship that got me ever since I was a kid. Especially with rap. I'd listen to rappers like classic rap like Eminem. I'd listen to Tupac. I'd listen to 50 Cent, and I'd always like it would tickle the artist. I'd be like, how do you achieve that? But it always scared me. It always intimidated me because I'd play like a random beat off of YouTube, and I really wanted to focus on the penmanship, and I'd start writing to it, and it was so intimidating. How do you get to that level? Up until a couple of years back, it was in the middle of 2019, I picked up a pen. It was like bad mental health year for Muhannad, which is my real name. And I just didn't drop the pen until I, got better. And the more I did it, the more I wrote. And I was so lucky because once I started writing, I met up with a bunch of wonderful producers and engineers that really, really helped push me. People that have been doing it for a long time. And that's a big part of the underground scene, it's collaborative and it's beautiful because like that track that you played as the intro, Stockholm, it wasn't produced by me. It was co-produced by a friend of mine called Ahmad El Haggar, who happens to also be the engineer for that track. And honestly, I'll give him 90% of the credit because I just did the writing and he did the co-producing. So it was just that. And the more I wrote, the more I got better at it. And then people started listening, and then more artists that were much like myself in different areas. Let's say I dabbled in penmanship. Jamal dabbled in engineering and in production. We just sort of find each other in the underground hip hop scene. And, that's all it is right now. It's just pockets of different talented groups of people that can all stand to win by collabing.
Yeah.
And that's how it is right now. And here I am.
Well, this is killing, man. So actually, then for somebody like me who's always wanted to visit Alexandria, Cairo, and not to be the tourist, but I'm really interested in the music. I've had friends that have traveled there and had the opportunity to hang with musicians and go to clubs and play. What would I be seeing? Where would I go? What's the scene like now?
Well, it's definitely more developed now than ever, really. I think its birth, a lot of people it's kind of like the old East Coast, West Coast hip hop sort of gripe. I think we have that, Cairo versus Alexandria. A lot of people say it started in Cairo. Others say it started in Alexandria. It's just beautiful. Most of the really, really well-known folks now do come from Alex. A bunch of people come from Cairo now. And as I said, it's weird because right now it's all a bunch of groups of artists, whether it be directors, producers, artists. there is that old West Coast, East Coast sort of thing happening here in Egypt right now when it comes to hip hop, really. I don't know if it's ever real because, you know, rap is always based on like sort of beefing and disses and stuff. But hey, it's very interesting and it pushes people forward and makes them want to, you know, always put their best on the table, which is always welcome in music, you know.
So that's what I was wondering about that is it's a friendly competition that helps people up their game, Everybody's trying to like bring it to another level, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool, man. Well, actually, Yassin and Ahmed, would you talk to us about like growing up in the scene there? What was it like? You know, what was it that motivated you to get into music, especially the music that you're creating now as singer-songwriters, as composers, that aligns to what Mosalem's talking about with his music? Go ahead.
Yassin.
Anybody can jump in.
You can go first. You can go first.
Okay. Very, very kind. I mean, so in my case is a little different because my dad's side of the family, they're all musicians. My dad is a singer. My grandfather, like all of them are musicians. So for me, it was always music, and it was always very well, not very, but traditional, pretty traditional. Like my grandfather, when he taught singing, he taught in a very traditional way. He taught very traditional music, very, very old school type of singing. And that's, in terms of as a singer, that's kind of what I grew up with. You know, and then, you know, as a musician, as a working musician in Egypt, I have to say that the time that I was in Egypt as a musician was pretty difficult because I graduated from my school, from my first one in 2010, then 2011 happened, and we all know what happened in 2011. So it was a very 2011, then post 2011 was very, it was great for musicians, but it was very difficult in terms of where to perform, really. But it's amazing how many talent there is there, like true talent. Like, you know, obviously in terms of traditional instruments, ridiculous, but also even in terms of, you know, people that play Western instruments, extremely talented. And you know, it's always been opportunity. It's always been a matter of like how much opportunity they get. But yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer necessarily.
Well, it's I guess so. You know, as a singer-songwriter, kind of building on that, did you find were there opportunities for you to perform your own music live at venues before you came to Berkeley? What was that like?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had plenty of opportunities to perform live, and I, you know, had a lot of original music and a band and everything, and we're still it's still the same group of people. There are places to perform in Egypt, and you know, it is there, but obviously I feel that it's the same anywhere. If you are a new artist, the things that you have to go through to build your audience, it's, you know, in Egypt, I feel it's a different degree of difficulty, just because it's harder to get to an audience in Egypt. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, is it the way people, you know, because, you know, I think maybe in Europe, but definitely in the United States, it's a social media game. You know,
Right.
it's like you really got to put yourself out there. You to be, you know, we talk about this a lot where nowadays we're in a period where people don't listen to music, we watch music.
Right. I mean, definitely in the last few years, I would say when I was right before Berkeley, social media was definitely a factor. It wasn't as much of a factor as right now, as in the last 5-6 years, definitely. But yeah, no, I mean, definitely it's a game changer. Like, you have to have a following on social media. It's not even an option. You just have to. And
Absolutely.
but when that kind of started to happen for me in the last few years, then I started to see a result of like, oh, okay, this is actually working. And it was definitely it's so interesting because back in the day, anywhere, right? Back in the day, it would be like you perform live a bunch of times so people recognize you. Now that's not even the case. Now you just, you have to really work on your social media skills, and then you bring the audience to your live gigs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
that's pretty much the same.
So Yassine, you want to talk a little bit too about, like sort of coming up on the scene there and how you were, connecting into the community and getting your music out?
Yeah, definitely. So I remember when I was growing up, a lot of people were going to like kind of centers that can learn teaching music, stuff like that. They would learn music from Egypt, but I kind of planned that I don't want to learn. Like, I want to get education and music until I go somewhere that can actually teach me the right way, or like the way that it's meant to be taught. So I was waiting to get here in a way, and then I remember when I was applying to Berkeley, I remember that I was supposed to like put in a portfolio that has all my work, all like stuff like that, and it was an empty portfolio. I submitted an empty PDF because I didn't do any work back then, but I had pieces that I composed on the side, and I like did them on my own, and I sent those pieces. And then I remember that like my application felt that, for me personally, I felt that for me to show Berkeley, like for me to show that I can be in such a, like I can prove myself in this place, I felt I have to come to Boston and like actually see the teachers and like meet people in Berkeley before I actually joined the school, And that's what I did. I flew all the way from Cairo to Boston, against my dad's will, because he thought that it was a waste of money and time. But I did that. I flew to Boston in 2019 to audition, and from that moment, like for some reason, like everything started to turn out to me. Like I got my first UNICEF gig when I was like in summer before Berkeley, and then after that gig, just everything kept coming. And then after joining Berkeley and seeing the amount of students that we have and all the amazing like student engineers that can they just want to help you out. They want to like record your stuff, So I was like, yeah, like I wouldn't mind. So I started recording my own pieces with like Berkeley students as like studio engineers in like some of the Berkeley studios. And I kind of did a lot of research with like some Berkeley professors about like about like the right way to post your music if you want to post it. And yeah, and then some of the tracks started getting on like on movies as well and stuff like that. And like I feel growing up in general, I kind of got very influenced by the 2011 part of the revolution. That kind of that I think the music scene in Egypt really developed in 2011 because a lot of like underground bands started like becoming more and more famous and like getting a lot of like followings, as Ahmad was saying. And like I remember when I was in Egypt, I used to go to concerts and like festivals that are just mainly underground bands from all around like the upper North African countries, like from Jordan, from Morocco, from Algeria, like these countries. Some bands, there's some like even rappers. It's like different kinds of music, and it's very diverse. But they have a lot of following. Some of these concerts had like at least 20,000 people, something like that, in one place, and that was very new, I think, to the Egyptian music scene in general, because we didn't have artists who can, or like that kind of scene where you go on a stage and have this kind of a lot of people in front of you, like watching you. I think it was very new, and it's getting developed right now. I've been following for a while. But personally, I just feel that as a film composer, it's not really a profession that has a lot of listeners in Egypt. It has a lot of like kind of work, because the kind of media that we have in Egypt is very basic in a way. So like needs like it's kind of predictable. But my goal as a human being in general is like at some point when I'm resourceful enough, I can change that and like actually elevate the level of like musicianship in Egypt in general. That's like my goal as a human being.
Got it. Very cool.
Can I ask Yassine a question?
Yeah, man, go for it.
Yassine, what was your feeling the first day in Boston in the winter? How did that feel for you?
I was very unprepared, and like everyone was laughing at me because like at some point my clothes was very Egyptian, like it was very kind of like light t-shirts and stuff like that, And I remember like at some
But
point I was
you
wearing
started
like
what, September or January?
September.
Okay, dude, I started in January.
Oh my God.
That was my first semester, was January 2013. It was like, what is this?
No,
What
and
is
like I remember
happening?
I used to slip all like on the snow all
Oh,
the time
dude,
because
that's, you have to.
I didn't have like snow boots. I don't know what those were even. Because we never have snow in Egypt. It's not a thing. So like I used to like go to school in sneakers, and just like
Yeah.
slip the whole way to school, kind of. So
It takes a year to learn that you have to get snow boots. That's what I did.
yeah,
I was like stubborn about it for a whole semester. I was like, nah. And then summer happened,
yeah.
and then winter. I was like, nope, I'm just kidding.
No, I remember one day I slipped so bad, like I was destroyed, and I went when I'm destroyed to this to like the store, and I bought like biggest boot I could find because I was like, this is not working, you know.
Oh yeah.
Well, neither of you are drummers, right? Because you remember the drum set
Yeah.
players trying to lug their drum sets through the snow out to Berkeley to a recording session, and they'd have that hand truck, and they're trying to push it through the snow.
Right.
It's horrible. It's criminal. It's
And bass players too, like these, like it's it's not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah, we have a professor here from Canada, Greg Doing's on the line. He's like, it gets up to -40, -60 up in Canada. So yeah, let's all go to Cairo. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Come out here, you guys.
I've got a question for Mosalem. Man, it's listening to your music, and it's really interesting to see how you're bringing hip hop, trap music, in the sort of electronic music together. And
Yeah.
could you talk a little bit about rhyming and flow in your language, because it's you're listening to these artists who've inspired you, and you're taking like their approach and like bringing your culture, your language to this music. Can you share a little bit about your approach and like how you do this?
Well, I mean, to me, especially as an artist, because I grew up, I didn't listen to much of the, like Ahmad mentioned, like traditional music. I wasn't ever like sort of a listener of that. I don't know, just because of the house I grew up in, all I did was torrent, like illegally download, because we didn't have any sort of, I'd illegally download like Get Rich or Die Trying, or like the early tapes by Dr. Dre and stuff.
Yep.
And so I was so engulfed in that sort of Western style that even after the Egyptian hip hop scene sort of found its sound, which is sort of this mix and mash of this genre that we have, this strictly Egyptian called maharaganat that Yassin and Ahmed would know, and hip hop and electronica at the same time, I sort of still stuck to the Western style. Like if you listen to this entire song, Stockholm, that was playing, it is mainly Western sort of style production. But when it comes to writing, I'm gonna speak for myself, just because I grew up going to like American schools and stuff, and English was like the main language that I learned everything save for the Arabic class that I had. A lot, like when I don't listen to American hip hop, when I'm listening to, let's say, like French hip hop or German hip hop or Filipino hip hop, they always manage to include, like, we sort of have this marriage of both languages that we speak, even sometimes like on, like with friends we speak with, it's just both. Like I'm dropping English words here and there always. And so I decided, you know what? Some Egyptian hip hop artists are strictly in Arabic or strictly in Egyptian slang, but that's not me. Like even my normal day-to-day conversation always includes dropping English words here and there. So I decided I have no problem keeping that as long as it's like my sound. And here's the rule. The rule is you can rhyme anything with anything. You just have to find, connect the dots. Yeah. I swear you can absolutely, if it's not the inflection, if it's not the syllables, you'll find it's the way you say it. So I sort of like, of course you start off, you're really bad, and then you sound cringy, and then you start sounding like artists that you like. And then somewhere between those lines, as long as you are consistent, you sort of find your voice, which I'm very proud to have like found as of really recently. But I found that, hey, this is the way that I talk, and it's the way that I flow, and it's the way that I write. So the process was sort of see who I look up to and what I like to hear, and then imitate that, or keep it within my subconscious while I'm creating a body of work, and then seeing what comes out, and then seeing if it's like sort of an imitation, or did I find myself? And then somewhere along those lines, it started not sounding like anybody else. And that's when I realized, oh, I sound like me.
Man, this is a trip. We were talking earlier before we got on the call here with everybody about Ray and I being jazz musicians. Ray is a bassist, I'm a trombonist. And in the world of jazz and in jazz improvisation, I think in the United States, the teacher that, sort of at the pinnacle that a lot of us looked up to is a trumpet player named Clark Terry. And Clark is a renowned trumpet player who started in the 50s and, you know, had a very, very long successful career. But he talked about music and creativity in these three modes, right? You know, the first thing we all do, obviously, is we imitate. And it's exactly what you're talking about. We're copying our favorite artists. We're trying to like sound like our heroes or heroines. And like,
Yeah.
you know, just get that vibe, get that thing happening. And as you said, you know, a lot of times we miss the mark.
Absolutely.
But then you start to copy enough of them that you start to get their sound, and you know, you might sound like me, a little bit like Frank Rosalino, but then a little bit like Miles Davis, and then maybe like a little bit like Sarah Vaughan or whatever. Trying the phrasing, the articulation, the whole vibe, and that assimilation happens, like bringing these sounds together. And then suddenly, as you're saying, you're starting to find your voice, and that's where that innovation happens, where you kind of like move forward and you start to begin to get your sound. And now it's going to be interesting. I mean, because going through your music, it's one of the things that we noted was just the way some of the tradition infuses your sound. You know, for us, it sounds almost like, you know, there's different instruments that you're using in the production. But also there's like some microtonal sound. There's like some vocalese happening that's sort of like in the cracks for us here in the United States. But it gives it a very distinct, you know, energy and flavor, man.
I mean, I just want to add one thing because it makes me feel inadequate. I'm not really, like when it comes to production, okay, I'm an artist in a way that like I really do feel my way because I started with music when I was like 25 and I've been working in radio for, I was not 25, I was about 26. I've been working in radio for 3 years. I needed to make ends meet and I still needed to make music. There was no time for me to learn, but I knew how to write. So it was all about connecting. So when it comes to like artistry, and you guys, you're all like wonderful musicians that know all these technical terms and music theory and stuff. And all I do is that like I sit with my producer friends, you know, who believe in me and I believe in them. And then I just like, this is, if a beat passes the vibe check, we build on it. like that's me. And then when somebody hits me with like a technical term, I'm like, bro, if I'm doing like the good thing and I feel that it's good, just like thumbs up. If not, I'm gonna tell you that it's a no. I swear. So when you hit me with like big, because all you guys are like wonderful big musicians that know all these things, I'm like, okay, this is not my place. I know I make good music, but I just literally I do play it by ear. And the one thing that I can note is the fact that I don't know why this little, because I don't know, I think artists, a big part of artistry is ego. Some of us have it more sort of submerged underneath than others. And so it's always been, hey, I made this song and I think it sounds different in my heart of hearts and I just put it out. What can I do that sounds different to me? It's sort of this competition, this continuous competition. So not two tracks sound the same. And if I make a track that sounds like something else, like this weird artist ego within me is like, bro, ditch it, you know, like throwing trash, even if it's good.
That's interesting. Working from that instinct of like, it either feels and sounds good or it doesn't. Doesn't matter how many technical terms you know or how many plugins you bought, right?
Yeah. I mean,
you know, does it convey the message? And actually, you know, I'd like to bring Yassin and Ahmad into this as well. Could you guys talk a little bit along this line of what Mosalem's talking about, which is, you know, how do you bring the culture, your culture, your background, your life experience into the music that you're writing and creating? Because, you know, Ahmad, when I was listening to your track, I think your music, one of the tracks that stuck out sounded like a bossa nova. But it was like this, you know, merging of all these different sounds and things like that. So could you both kind of like jump in on that as well and talk about your influences and how you bring all these different elements into your production and your approach?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's harder to explain, I guess, but I think when you just someone who listens to any musician, when you listen to a lot of music and you're influenced by a lot of things, you try to include them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think that going to what a lot of people were saying, right now what's happening in Egypt, and then part of why I want to go back is there's this reconnection with old roots that's going on. There's a lot of, Yeah, there's absolutely. It's a great word to use. There's a lot of reconnection with old roots and kind of a more traditional sound that's going on with newer sounds. Like 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. 10 years, even earlier, there was a thing where there was a gap between what's considered cool, which was usually Western, and what's not cool, which is usually traditional. And a lot of the cooler kids wouldn't listen to traditional music because it wasn't cool. And right now, what's happening is beautiful, especially with hip hop. Honestly, hip hop in Egypt, it's really happening. Like, yeah, it's a very interesting genre in Egypt, and even even other things too. Even in jazz, like there's great jazz in Egypt that's doing a lot of traditional Egyptian music with a lot of jazz. Um, so, I mean, again, this is not a great answer to the question. I guess my generation, at least, were the ones that were kind of trying to do everything to see what works,
Got it.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. So the
And
mad scientist in the lab.
yeah, it's like we're just literally trying to do everything, see what sticks, and the people that usually played again Western instruments really well weren't necessarily the best at listening to Arabic music, or weren't necessarily didn't necessarily grow up with it.
Yeah.
But now we have a lot of people that grew up with it and have an ear for it that are very good at these other instruments too. So we're seeing a more natural merging of both, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Absolutely,
obviously.
it really does.
Yeah, seeing man, what's your take on this? Because you're kind of like coming up now. You're at Berkeley, and as a composer and producer, how what's your take on like what's on your palette, your creative palette, and how you bring things together?
I mean, personally, I remember when I was younger, um, I was very influenced by Western music and more of like classical Western music. But at some point, when I kind of when I felt like my musicianship is growing more and more, I started looking towards traditional music, like very old, like traditional, like Kulthum, like some very old artists who tended to use orchestral arrangements in their music and very long tracks. Like some of the songs are like an hour long, stuff like that, you know.
Wow.
And personally, the there's a composer called Balik Hamdi. He's a very famous, like he's one of the legendary composers in like the last century, you know. And his music was very melodic in a way that, like, now when I'm at Berkeley, I'm learning the traditional ways to do stuff in an arrangement, like how to arrange stuff in like more in like acceptable way and all that kind of stuff. I'm learning the stuff how it should be done. But then when I look back at this kind of music and I see like how people from where I am from are doing stuff way like 60 years ago, 70 years ago, you know, I think it's very interesting because it's like a whole different way of seeing music and it's a whole different perspective of like understanding music in a theoretical way as well. So I found that very interesting. And at some point, like I don't claim that my music is not very it doesn't bridge both worlds at all. Like that's not what I do, to be honest. But at the same time, I just as a musician, I really appreciate the idea that we can do both and you can have both systems and both kind of styles that work in a very similar but yet very different way. You know, it's weird.
Can I just add like something, build on what Yassin said?
Sure, man.
Because I strictly believe that there's definitely weirdly an upside to the fact that like when I thought back in the day, you know, when I was like 15, I was like, oh man, I love music. I wish I were a musician, you know. I don't know where to get from there. You know, that's what Yassine said at the start. We sort of in Egypt, because we don't have that sort of traditional, customarily, we don't have that sort of, we do have like music schools and stuff, but they're not popular. They're not, parents would never just, only cool parents would think, oh, sure, pursue music. Come on, do it, you know? And I think that's sort of my path with music as well, is the fact that like I wasn't taught anything. We sort of, what do you call it? Backwards engineer.
Yeah, reverse engineered it.
Reverse engineer that one. You reverse engineer your way into music. Like, yo, I don't have the technicalities. I swear, a lot of the underground scenes in general, when it comes to music, if you listen to any sort of underground artist, in different genres. If you listen to bands, underground bands, you know, pop rock / rock, if you listen to Maharaganat, if you listen to hip hop artists, nothing is by the book. And I think that's beautiful, because it's literally kind of exactly the same way. It's akin to my journey with music. It's like, play by ear. Sounds good to you. And all of us know, you know, if it sounds good to you, that's good enough.
Right.
You know?
It. Yeah, man. No, I
So
totally
there's a
agree.
beauty to the fact that we don't have that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Yassin, you just said something about you used the word sort of learning the appropriate way to do it, and that's a
Yeah.
really funny thing, because it's like learning the appropriate way to speak or what have you, and it's interesting that that's a mindset that's out there, is that, well, there's a right way and there's a wrong way. Well, you know, somebody
There's
tell
there's
Billy,
not
there's
a wrong
not.
way, but I felt yeah, there's not. But like personally, I just felt that like I always composed by ear. I had like full orchestra pieces, like whole orchestral pieces with like a big instrumentation by ear. But I always thought that if I can't write what I'm composing, then it's pointless, because like no one's ever gonna play it. So like when I came to Berkeley, my goal, like my initial goal, was not to get work or to get anything out of Berkeley, but to learn how to do things in a way that everyone else can understand what's happening in my mind. So that way,
Yeah.
when I go to a orchestra and show them the score, they understand what this is. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like it's not right or wrong. It's more of like a way to interpret what you want to say musically, so that everyone else understands it's not only you, especially as musicians. You know, that was what I meant.
Got it. No, that totally, no, that makes complete sense. What I'd like to do now is I want to bring in a colleague. He's our executive director of the Berkeley Abu Dhabi Center. For you, ladies and gentlemen, that are here on the Zoom, Berkeley has recently opened a center in Abu Dhabi, and we have an award-winning producer, musician leading the charge there. He's a Berkeley alum as well. In the early stages of our campus in Valencia, Spain, he was actually there as well, helping to get that up and running. And I'd like to bring in Gael Heading to the conversation. Gael, you know, is a Berkeley team member who's leading the charge and doing this work in the region. You know, what are some of the things that you're seeing and hoping to see as you're working with musicians? You know, the up and coming Yashins and Ahmeds and Mosalems. You know, what is it that you're finding as you're connecting with musicians and educators?
Well, thank you, Jason. First of all, it's fascinating to be hearing several of the things that you're all talking about for the last 30 minutes. I think it's very exciting to see the relationships that there is, you know, between the different countries in the region, but also, you know, with the music of the rest of the world. And you know, I see Ahmed, for instance, on the call, and how he's right now in LA. And actually, I just realized that we've had you on one of our videos here, one of the
Yes.
collaborations we did, Yatair.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so I mean, it's to your question, Jason. I think the, you know, since and by the way, I'm not originally from here, so my perspective is one, you know, that comes from outside, but with the openness of trying to kind of better understand. That's why a conversation like today is so fascinating. It's interesting to see how there is a deep and rich cultural sort of heritage across the region, and as you were mentioning, in some cases, it, you know, especially in the past, it you know, there's this sort of this division between how good, you know, how desirable the music of the West and the United States could be, and I can relate to that because I'm originally from Mexico, and we've got a like sort of similar sort of phenomenon, but at the same time, I'm also realizing some of what you're describing, which is you're starting to see all these emerging artists that are starting to reconnect with the roots, that are fusing, you know, infusing some of these flavors of traditional music, and I think that's really exciting. On the same time, I think a lot of the emerging artists are on this path of finding their own way, or their own sort of pathways towards their own artistry, and for some, you know, sort of like you were expressing, Mosalem, for some it's a very organic sort of reverse engineering process, and for others it's a process of sort of connecting to different sources of information, you know. And Berkeley Abu Dhabi being here is I think exciting because you know, I think this region sort of needs the place where people can congregate and exchange ideas and connect and develop, and you know, whether it's staying true to the roots or you know, learning a new sort of genre or fusing it together, right? So we're seeing all of that happening, and it's a really exciting time and place to be in for sure.
Yeah, so
for
Gael,
us, just to mention.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I was going to ask
No,
you,
I
could you
was
tell them
gonna
about the program you're doing with Pearl and how you're
Yeah.
doing some artist development?
That's exactly one of the main what I was going to go to. Thanks, Jason, for mentioning it. So we've you know, with that on understanding, we've identified the need to sort of to help develop talent, and we've created something called Pearl, which is Performance Leadership and Entrepreneurship. It's a program. I'll put the link in there for all you to see. We've just started. We've got our first cohort of students that have you know, kind of gone through this really intensive 12-week program, and we go from, you know, song ideas all the way to release strategies, and we go into music production and the business aspects of it. So it's a really interesting program. Actually, just if we have, do we have 1 minute, Jason?
Yeah, man.
Okay, let me if I can share real quick, I want to share with you all a 1 minute sort of quick video. Am I able to share? Yeah, great.
Yep, Ray hooked you up here.
Perfect. Just a second. Yeah, so these is our first 4 Pearl students, and here is their sort of testimonial, just to give you an idea of the vibe.
There's no audio.
Oh, really? Just a second,
Yeah, you want to
then.
share your audio? Just do it one more time.
Yeah. Yep. I should be sharing my audio. That's strange. Just a second. Let me try that again. Here we go, and share sound. There we go.
Cool.
I applied to the program to learn more about music, artistry in general, to improve myself as an artist, and to learn from some of the best people in the industry.
اللي شدني ولفتني في برنامج بيرل التابع لبركلي أبو ظبي إنه راح يركز على هويتنا الموسيقية.
You know, we had classes on release strategies, on songwriting, on production, whatnot.
It's not just about learning, it's about the experience. It's about the people you meet, of course.
So the program really opened my mind to the business side of music and things that we don't necessarily see behind the scenes.
اكتشفت وايد أشياء أنا ما كنت أعرفها، مثلاً دقة الأشياء وطول خلنا نقول المراحل عشان نطلع أغنية واحدة.
Close your eyes, fly, because it's an experience that honestly I would never forget.
So yeah, these are our first 4 per students. We're actually about to, we're still open with applications, and we're about to start in the fall again. And we're looking to continue this. But what we've seen, even just working with these first cohort, is that the music that's coming out of it, and the sort of like discovery of what's possible is amazing. So we're really excited to be here. And happy to see that there's so much you know, built up interest in developing music further and establishing collaborations across the region.
Brilliant, man. And Yaroub is one of our instructors over at the
Yes.
Abu Dhabi Center. He dropped the link in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. So please go and check that out if you're interested in learning more about the Abu Dhabi Center, about the Pearl program. It might be a great match for you, and it's close. So maybe it's not that difficult, maybe a little bit easier to get to than getting all the way to Boston or Valencia, one of our campuses. Man, Gael, thanks for being here. I do want to take a minute before we go to questions, just introduce one more colleague. We have an amazing guitarist and also a boxer and world traveler, and he's also an assistant director in our admissions office joining us today. Daniel Abusi's here, so for folks that are here on the call that have admissions questions, you're interested in applying to Berkeley or about Berkeley programs, Daniel is here as well. Daniel, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you so much, Jason, for the kind introduction. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for having me, and it's so nice to see everybody here. And I love to always hear like these experiences and feedback from you guys. Also, a big thank you goes to Global Initiatives. Please make sure that you follow Global Initiative on Instagram, because there's tons of fantastic events that run all year long. So that would be my first recommendation. So I'm here just to share a little bit about Berkeley, and I'm part of the admissions office, which is an office that travels all over the world when it's possible. But we love to think that we actually planning to be back on the road soon, so wherever is possible to do so. We meet students on their turf for auditions and sessions about Berkeley. And I'm not sure if Jason, if we have the time, but I also have a few slides that I can share with everybody. I'm not sure how we're doing time-wise.
Let's do this. Let's open it up for questions, and then we'll bring the slides in. How's that cool? Because I know that folks have been hanging for a while. And they've got questions for our artists, and then for the folks that want to stay, we can also dig in and you can share your deck.
Absolutely. So one quick thing, I shared in the chat the link to download the Berkeley View Book. I did that before, but as you can tell from my post before, I never won any spelling contests because I misspelled view book. So I corrected that and I now reshared that. So that was quite embarrassing. So
please click on that, ladies and gentlemen, because you're going to get a lot of information about Berkeley. And then in a few minutes here, we'll get in and Daniel, you can definitely share a lot more information about what's going on with the admissions cycle for this year.
Yeah, so feel free to drop your questions if you have any. Like I mentioned, I work in the admissions office, so any questions that pertain on how to get into Berkeley, what is it that you're supposed to do to prepare for the audition? As there's usually a lot of questions about the process that we have in place, to the screening that we're doing to each and every applicant who seek to get into an undergraduate program. Drop your questions in the chat. I'll make sure that they go all answered.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And I want to open it up. Youssef, you reached out here in the chat. You had a question for our artists. You want to unmute yourself and turn on your camera and jump in and ask your question if you're still here?
Yeah. Hi guys. You can all hear me, right?
Yeah, man. Where are you connecting from?
I'm connecting from Cairo. I'm in Maadi, Egypt.
Awesome.
Yeah. My hometown.
Bro, I'm in Maadi too.
Youssef seems like a metalhead. The posters of metal bands behind you.
Yeah, I got a lot of metal bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also interested in like a lot of stuff like jazz, hip hop, and other stuff like that. I play bass for a couple of years now. I'm so glad this call is happening. Like, globalizing the whole like modern Egyptian music and things like that. And so I just have like two questions, like quick ones, both for the artists. The first one is that, like Muhannad was talking about how he doesn't know any kind of theory and he's making music. And I feel like there's this, we listen to a lot of music and we gain this intrinsic, nature to build on this music. And so yeah, I wanted to ask artists in their like hip hop and making hip hop or the production or the music that goes to it, what other things other than hip hop and electronic music are you listening to that you're putting into your songs and things like that? So that's the first question. And the second question is more about the future. And we were like throwing around the term shabby music. And shabby started off as a very, working class kind of music, talking about social and economic inequality. It spread a lot. It gained a lot of momentum. The problem happened was it got super commercialized by advertisement companies in Egypt and yada, yada, yada. And so so it lost a bit of like its core. So I just wanted to talk about the future of hip hop and how it can keep its artistic core without being, like super commercialized for like advertisements and things like that, being in 1 minute advertisements, yada, 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 and so on.
Okay.
Wow, those are two great. Who wants to jump in on either of those questions?
I mean, I have one answer when it comes to like, especially direction wise or genre wise, when I'm making like something. Let's say I'm like sat with a producer and we're working on something. I think, and I don't know if this is going to be blasphemic in this in this Zoom meeting, but I think the genres are kind of obsolete. Like most of my favorite artists in the last 5 years have been people that sort of transcended genre. People where you just listen, you're like, bro, I have no idea what this is, but hey, my ears are pleased. And so I never, I never want to abide by rules. Like if I'm sat with a producer, because that's usually what I'm doing. And yes, I am playing it by ear. Usually I have like one word in mind or I feel some sort of way. And whatever the track that comes out of this, thanks to the beauty of, pitch correction, maybe I have a good voice for, hip hop, but I want to do a metal track, but I'll do it, So when it comes to me as an artist, I never abide by any rules. Like last year on my birthday, me and my producer friend Jamel, we made a rap rock track about my birthday, and there were no rules whatsoever there, because that's the beauty of art and the beauty of music. Some people do abide by the rules, and that's okay. Some people do it the appropriate way. To me, I don't care. If it's dope, it's dope.
Yeah.
That's for the first question. For the second question, when it comes to the future, I think one other way to look at it, as opposed to commercialized, ergo ruined, I think that's just what happens to the general overview on a specific genre. You like it because not a lot of people like it, and then it goes popular, and then you feel like, oh, everybody's listening to it, I don't care for it anymore. But I think the fact that Shabi, which is what you call it, the working class genre, how it sort of married our hip hop scene is so it's not a surprise for me at all, because hip hop was always about sort of the working class. Nobody's hearing me. I don't relate to a lot of people. And so having hip hop and Shabi sort of meet in the middle in the Egyptian scene is no surprise, because both genres do come from a place of, I'm here, hear me out. I have something to say, and I'm gonna find my own voice. I don't care about the right track. I don't care about how things are supposed to quote unquote be done. So I don't only not hate it, I love it. It's wonderful. And I can't wait to see where it goes from there, because now it's just this beautiful mishmash between EDM and hip and popular normal old school hip hop and new school hip hop, and also Shabi. And nobody else is doing it on the planet except for us. I mean, when it comes to Egypt.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Can I just like,
yeah, go for it.
Can I just like it's just like based on the second question. So like, I think like what I mean by commercialization is, remember like in 2011 and like the boom of music, we got a lot of like indie rock, Arabic indie music and Kairoki and things like that. And what happened is later on, these bands kind of lost their artistic core and went for, more modern music that would go to corporate rather than their old underground part of a fundamental. So that's what I mean. This fundamental.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay. I mean, Yassin brought up a point where it's
like, say something real quick, Muhammad, quick regarding that, if you don't mind, because it's related to what you said earlier that has to do with commercialization. I mean, Kairoki is a specific example we won't get into because we don't want it to get into any trouble, but it's basically the whole thing I don't know. I feel that it's just a normal cycle of anything that becomes popular. It just eventually will get consumed by products eventually, and that's just any genre. I mean, in the US, that's definitely the case. I'm sure our hip hop fans in this room will absolutely agree that there was a time when hip hop was this and that, and then when money came into it, it changed. Whether it's good or bad, that's debatable, but it's just the nature of how products work.
Can I add on to this point? No, I just want to add on to your point, because sure, sometimes the commercialization makes it sound like in some sort of way, but also I think Yassin said something when it comes to like how you want to eat as an artist in Egypt, not just an artist that makes traditional music, because you can sort of find a way to eat if you're making traditional music. But I think that still to this day, as a hip hop artist, you're not eating like a normal artist, even if you're making big numbers, because I don't know, they don't play live as much. It's mostly still underground with just distributors, not record labels, so you don't have that sort of capital as well. So I think I don't blame them when somebody quote unquote sells out, because you gotta eat. I don't know, that's just another perspective on the subject matter, and I can't fight it.
It's a very good point. It's a great point. Yeah, no, definitely musicians in Egypt don't get paid enough unless for sure, 100%.
Also, can I add something one of those as the second question actually? Because Karaoke is such an interesting band, because people who don't know what Karaoke is one of the bands that they got famous because they made a song during the revolution of the 2011 revolution, and that's how they started their career kind of. And they were one of the first bands to start that kind of underground rock alternative vibe. But not to get too political here, but some of their songs were very politically powered, so they weren't able to keep going in the same manner because things changed in Egypt, and so they have to change their direction, and that's what happened. So that I think the commercialization that happened to Karaoke specifically wasn't really part of their band choice, because I know them personally as people, and like none of them wanted this to happen, but it's just the kind of the natural flow of things, because otherwise if they didn't do this, they would stop working. So that's kind of how it happened with Karaoke, I think.
Yeah.
This is great questions, man. Yusuf, man, thank you for jumping in. When I open up, anybody else, who else has questions that wanna jump in here and just enter this conversation, because this is very, very interesting for us to wade in here, and we're just scratching the surface. Anybody else you can add a question into the chat, or you can raise your hand. Or
can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Go for it.
Do you mind if I ask a question? And that might be a little embarrassing for admissions, but does that mean that there's going to be a Berkeley audition in Egypt?
Well, Daniel, what do you think, man?
That's not embarrassing at all. I mean, it's we always looking to expand our territories, whatever it's possible. I would probably say, and maybe Jason also has a little bit more feedback on this in terms of whether or not we'd ever be able to be there in person. Right now, we're conducting Zoom auditions literally all over the place. So before, it was probably confident when I say that 90% of the auditions that we used to do were in person, because we had over 50 locations between domestic sites and internationals, and then a little 10% was remote. And now with COVID, obviously the tables have turned, and this percentage kind of was inverted in some ways. But like I said earlier, we're looking wherever possible to bring the audition back to our in-person locations, wherever it's feasible. I'm not 100% sure about conducting in-person audition in Egypt anytime soon, to be honest with you. But like I said, it goes back to what I was saying. We're always looking to expand, our in-person site. So whatever is feasible and is possible will be there.
Yeah, I agree, Daniel. I know that we are planning to be with Gael maybe later this year in December. And then if not, in early 2022 at the Abu Dhabi Center. We've got a couple of dates tentatively planned. And depending on the conditions, Daniel's team and my team with Ray and our colleagues, we do look to expand our connections. And so when we're in a location, maybe doing auditions and clinics and things, when we're in a specific region, we might make an additional trip and spend a few days and actually like do an exploratory trip, actually get to Alexandria, get to Cairo, meet our alums, and go and check out some schools, check out some clubs, hang with some musicians, go to some of the schools that have really good music programs, and begin to get honestly introduced to the different musicians that are there, so we can better understand what the opportunities are. And it usually takes, as Daniel said, it takes a couple of cycles, because we need to learn, but also the community there needs to know who we are. And then that kind of like builds itself up to the next opportunity. And I see Greg's chatting about Western Canada. And Greg, we are coming your way. I know we'll be in a few places in Canada this year, and we can follow up and send you the dates and locations as well. I've got a hand up. Who's our hand for? Somebody raised their hand. I can't see. Oh, there it is. Mark. Hey, Mark Soublaise here. Mark, come on. This is Mark. He's a Berkeley alumnus. He's from our partner school in France, Music Academy International. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Nice to meet you all. I have a question for the Egyptian musicians. What's going on with the movie industry? You know, because maybe some of you are doing film scoring, I don't know, or plan to do film scoring, you know, but the movie industry was the biggest one in the 50s and 60s, you know, in Middle East, in Maghreb too. So what's going on with the industry right now?
I think the thing that's making more headway these days is television series more than films, because there's just a lot of money in television more than cinema these days in Egypt specifically. So there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to television. I don't know if Yassin would agree with me on that. Yassin disappeared.
Yassin, where'd you go, my friend?
Yassin is like, okay, I made this happen. I'm going now.
Okay.
He abandoned us.
I have a second question also. Well, you answered my question, because when I was a kid, I've seen some of the movies, the production where it was very good movies. I mean, it's like for the time, at that time, it was very good. Now the other question is, I'm just wondering about you talked about Shahabi. You talked about the Shahabi music, and I know it's a traditional popular music, and for a long time, I mean, until tonight, I thought it was from Nigeria. It was mostly from down in Nigeria. It started there. So
now, we use it. It's, by the way, it's the same word. It's the same meaning. It just means colloquial, or like of the people, like people's music, basically.
Yeah.
And there is Chabi music, which is Algerian traditional music, which is like the Algerian working class music or popular music. But it's just the same word. It's not the same genre, if that makes sense.
Genre.
It's
exactly.
not the same
That's why I was confused.
But it's the same idea. It comes from the same place, if that makes sense.
Okay, I was confused. Okay, good. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Mark. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark is incredible musician, producer. And, for those of you that are interested, he works at Music Academy International and in Nancy, France, but they also have other campuses and other programs that they're doing. So be sure, Mark, if you want to drop the link into the chat and let people know what you're doing with the school there, that'd be great. They're a Berkeley Global Partner. And also Mark is, he works at Euro Disney as a producer. So
whoa,
those of you that are interested in that world. Samia asked a question that I think, Daniel, you can jump in and answer. And this is, maybe you can talk a little bit about the admissions process and scholarships, because obviously that's a big question for musicians that are looking to get connected to a Berkeley education, right?
Definitely, yes. So thank you so much for asking that question. I've shared in the chat a link to the admission manual that we have on our website. It's called Berkeley Audition Guidelines. As some of you may know, everything when it comes to admissions in the undergraduate programs run through our audition process, right? And same goes for scholarships. So the idea is that the better you perform in your audition, the better you're able to meet the requirements for admissions, and you're solid academically, the more likely you are to get scholarships, right? So scholarship range from anything from $0 all the way to full tuitions, and 45% of the students that apply to Berkeley every year end up getting, scholarship from the college. Now, when it comes to the audition, right? So the process is you apply for Berkeley, that is usually done online, and then you're invited for an audition. So historically, the audition can be in person or can be on Zoom, right? Once you get invited for an audition, the audition is what we call A&I, right? Audition and interview, because it's a two-step process. The first step, the audition, is divided into 4 segments, and we have a prepared piece, improvisation, year training, and side reading. So the prepared piece is that you have 3 to 5 minutes to perform a piece of your choosing on your principal instrument, right? So 3 to 5 minutes to play a cover, to play an original, to play a combination of the two, to play rock, metal, classical, jazz, whatever that you're into, whatever makes you shine as a musician, or a combination of these, right? So the whole process that we have in place is very organic, because it's catered to your needs and where you're coming from and who you are as a musician. So the audition is really your business card into the college, and those 3 to 5 minutes that you have, that's really that answers the question, who are you, what do you plan to do, what makes you shine as a musician. So I think part of the process is also for you to choose the right piece that better represents you. Then we have an improvisation piece. Usually this is done over a backing track that we can provide, or we have our faculty that could be playing bass or guitar or piano, and then you just have to improvise on your principal instrument. This is kind of answer the question, what if you find yourself in a practice room and there's a band that starts playing a song that you don't know? How do you adjust and adapt to what's being played and move forward, right? Then we have step 3, which is year training. Usually this starts with a number of clapping exercises, patterns that you just have to repeat, and a few questions more towards the music theory kind of thing, side of things. You may be asked to recognize the nature of certain chords. Our faculty may be playing a chord, and you just have to recognize if it's a major, a minor, a 7 and diminished, sus, and so forth. And then you may be asked to also identify the chords within notes. So if I say, I don't know, F minor, you're just going to have to identify the notes within that chord, for example. Moving forward, we have a sight reading piece that's usually 1 or 2 practice exercises that are specific to your instrument that you just have to sight read. So, and that's just for the audition, right? Then we have an interview piece that is done with an admission counselor, where we ask you questions. It's a suitability questions, right? Where you're coming from, what do you plan to do, why you're applying to Berkeley, what are your goals, in what way can you contribute to the Berkeley community and make the experience of your peers a better one, and so forth, right? So the way you answer these questions, the way you perform your audition, and your ability to excel in each segment of the audition, together with your past academic situation, defines the amount of scholarship that you receive. So with this, I'm just going to go back to what I said in the beginning. I shared in the chat the manual to prepare for the audition. You'll find practice exercises and a lot, a lot of good insights on what is it that you have to do to prepare for this process and find and hopefully get the highest, amount of scholarship possible.
Just to make sure, if you can't read music or if your reading is not great, doesn't mean you can't get in, right?
Right.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's correct.
That's how I was. If I can add to that, I came being self-taught, and I remember when I went to the audition, they gave me the packet that had a piece I should try sight read, and I had 20 minutes to prepare for that piece, and I knew for a fact that I won't be able to do it in 20 minutes. So I went in and I was straight with them. I told them that I'm gonna play my piece that I prepared, but I can't read this, And I was born with perfect pitch, so the whole e-training side of things was easy for me. But in conclusion, I just want to say that the audition experience for me, I did it in Boston, and it was really, they were very welcoming and very understanding to kind of where I came from and like my kind of background. And they try to see your musicianship as much as they can so that they can help you and like they can see if you're a good fit. So I think that I hope that helps,
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
If I could add to that, this is not yet, this is sort of a first, so you're all sort of hearing this sort of ahead of time, but we are hoping to be rolling out fellowship money specifically for people in the region. So it's going to be an Abu Dhabi fellowship. So the sort of the process that Daniel described still remains, but when they're assessing, scholarship money, it's from a different sort of pool of money, so to speak, and there will soon be a rollout specifically for people in the region. So you would apply to Boston or Valencia or New York or even online, any of the different offerings that Berkeley has. And if you are from the region, as you go through that application process, you would be earmarked. But you would also, if for all of you that are on the call and that you're hearing this, if you keep your eye out, there will also be sort of a application process for the Abu Dhabi Fellowship. So those two things in parallel. So if you're applying to any of the offerings at Berkeley, and also make sure you are sort of signing up for the fellowship, then those two kind of informations piece together. And like Daniel said, at the sort of through the admission process, then you're the amount of money that you could potentially get gets defined through the admissions process. The only sort of condition for this, so just so you know, even though it's not out there yet, for this Abu Dhabi Fellowship, is that you are from the region, and that and that includes Middle East, North Africa, and India, and that you would either previously to getting this or after the fact would commit to coming through Abu Dhabi, either for a small short program or coming to present or whatnot. So that is not yet out there, but we're working on this, and we're hoping that we're able to start rolling it out early to 2022. So for all of you that are considering, know that there will be extra support coming the way for people in the region.
Yeah, this is excellent news, Gael, and it's something you've been working on now for a couple of years, and it's going to be a game changer, especially for people like you, Samia, and Mamouan, who are really looking to get connected to a Berkeley experience. The Berkeley experience is now this global experience that can start closer to home and then go to wherever it might lead you, maybe to Boston, maybe to Valencia, New York, Berkeley online. So this is great. I know we're well over time, and so I want to kind of get to wrapping this up, and I've got a couple of questions. And the first question I have is for my guests, for Gael and for Mosalem and Yassin and Ahmad. If you all could just put in the chat, ways that people can reach you. If you want to have them follow you on social media, go and check out your music online. But that would be a great thing for everybody in the audience here to know how they can reach out and connect with you. And actually, Daniel put his email address in there as well for those of you that have admissions questions. And the second question I have for our artists here is, so Mosalem and Yassin and Ahmad, could you give us like one artist that you're checking out now in the region that we should be putting on heavy rotation on our playlists? Who do you recommend that we kind of get our ears digging into? And anyone, Mosalem, why don't you jump in first, man, and tell us who you listen to, who should we go check out?
I mean, when I was asked in the comments about who's an artist that I really listen to a lot, I mentioned an Egyptian artist that does mainly hip hop, but it's melodic and it dabbles in almost R&B. It's such melodic hip hop that it turns into R&B sometimes. It's wonderful. It's called Legacy. But also, I really wanted to shout out an artist that was in the comments and has been with us ever since the meeting started. It's called Ismail Saeed. He's in the chat right now. He's an amazing artist, and this guy's hunger has always pushed me forward. I remember just YouTubing, wanting to see the people in the scene when I first started, because it was just like 4 big people, and it was kind of scary. But at the same time, you're like, okay, if I'm good enough, I can get in. People can know me. And I typed in, I can't remember, like Egyptian rapper 2019, something like that. And Ismail came up. He was called ASAP Urban at the time. and this guy's hunger is insane. So I wanted to shout him out. He's in the comments right now. He just commented, and his work ethic. This dude didn't know how to produce, and he's taught himself over the last couple of years.
Okay.
We didn't have a chance to collaborate as of yet, but I'm totally looking forward to it. And one more artist who's also in the chat, remember when I at first started and I told you that the underground scene's based on community. Well, this guy, he's called Mahmoud. He has a page on Instagram called Stage Fright. And Stage Fright, the name is in on itself, you know. It was just based solely on, hey, I'm not bound by genre. I'm gonna look for artists that I think are cool and I'm gonna push them. It's just a beautiful community, and it's actually part of how I came to find Ismail and the producers that I worked with. It was just this beautiful domino effect. Mahmoud listened to a track of mine that he thought was cool, and he had this segment at the time called Tune of the Week, and he included it. So it's that beautiful sense of community that really makes you, because delving into a scene, especially a scene that is as scary as the hip hop scene in Egypt, because it's so new and it's not backed by anything and you don't know how to get there. It's these small senses of community and these people just pushing you forward that makes all the difference, and just doesn't make you quit in the face of like, oh man, starting is so hard. I'm gonna just quit instead of investing so much time in it. So I wanted to shout out these two people because they've been a great help in motivating me and you know, as somebody, you know, with that sort of work ethic. And Mahmoud, that's Ismail, and Mahmoud, and just the way he hey, I'm gonna create a small community, because underground artists always feel that's a big part of it, you know, I'm alone. So just shouts out.
Yeah, man. Thank you for,
Where can we find your music though?
Say that again.
Ahmad, where can we find your music though?
I go by Mosalem. You can find me on all the streaming platforms. You can find me on Apple Music. You can find me on Spotify. You can find me on YouTube. Releasing a music video for my next single on my birthday, which is in 48 hours. Yeah, that's right. So everywhere where there's music.
Cool. And I just dropped the SoundCloud in there as well to check that out. And yeah, so Ahmad, you want to give us your recommendation, sir?
So I listen to a lot of old things. So if you're completely unfamiliar with music from that region, it might be too much, but I'll just say it. There's a composer, singer, songwriter, everything, like legend, like absolute legend. His name is Ahmad El Haggar. He's my all-time favorite, and I still listen to him pretty regularly. But also, if you're just into like the singing, if you are into the style of singing, in my opinion, he's a great intro to what this style is supposed to be. In terms of, like, you know, traditionally this is the singing, this is the technique. Things that are more modern, I would say, so there's this he's not Egyptian, he is Algerian, and very jazz fusion, very Berkeley. His name is Karim Ziad. He's not a Berkeley person, but a very interesting, beautiful mix of things. Just really, really beautiful, very, very true, very honest. So yeah, it's definitely highly recommend. So these are my recommendations.
So it's Karim Ziad.
Karim Ziad, yeah.
Cool, got it. All right.
IAD, like incredible. It's just incredible. And Ahmad El Haggar is like just incredible. But yeah, in terms of music, I like everywhere on social media, Ahmad with an A, El Haggar, exactly how it's spelled in the meeting. But yeah, you can find music everywhere, on Facebook, on Instagram, all the things, all the platforms. Yeah.
Yassin, what do you got, man? What's your recommendation?
I mean, if I would choose Egyptian, I'm definitely interested in the hip hop scene. Egypt is very, like, I'm not into hip hop as a person at all, but I just find it very interesting what's happening right there. But there's a Tunisian artist called Dhabi Yusuf. He's a very accomplished artist right now. I think he's one of the best artists that managed to have a good fusion between Middle Eastern kind of instruments and and jazz specifically, and like kind of blues. His music is amazing, and his voice is absolutely stunning. I would definitely check him out, definitely, Yusuf. I know that Berkeley ensembles used to play some of his stuff at some point before I came. Like in Deletion, some used to play some of his stuff, and he's an amazing artist.
Nice, man. Well, I have one question here for our audience, for those of you that have been able to stick for this long. You know, we sat down with Yassin to do this. You know, this was just, we're trying to break the ice. We're so honored to have Mosalem with us and Ahmad El Haggar with us as well. Thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, should we do another one of these sessions? And if so, in the chat, you know, what would you like to focus on? Because this was kind of a very broad discussion, but, you know, as we're talking about music from Egypt, should we do another session? And if so, what should we dig into? Should we dig into production? Should we dig into the songwriting? Should we dig into the instrumental music, the vocal music? What would you like to hear in the next discussion if we were to do another event? Go ahead and throw your responses in the chat. Cool. Egyptian jazz. Yeah, man. All right.
I recommend one group.
Yeah, go for it.
Speaking of Egyptian jazz, which a lot of Egyptians would know about, there's a group called Eftekesat, EFTEKESAT. Really, really cool. Very, you know, very mature, very just great stuff. And I know there's another Ahmed that recommended, a guy named Ahmed Nazmi. He's pretty cool too. Like, it's just amazing. There's a lot of cool jazz in Egypt, so definitely recommend that.
All right, brilliant. Yeah, man. Throw, ladies and gentlemen, please throw your thoughts into this chat, because we're going to capture all this stuff. And Ray and I will sit down with Yassin and maybe Gael, and we'll cook something up and bring another session to you. I really appreciate all of you sharing your knowledge, your experience, your expertise with our audience here. Thanks to Gael and Daniel also for jumping in and joining us. And it's really an honor to have the other renowned artists here. And we will be following up with you, and maybe we'll have you as part of our next discussion soon. Ladies and gentlemen, just, you know, wishing you the best. Please stay healthy, stay safe, keep creating great music, stay connected to the community. And you know, for my part, I hope one of these days soon to be able to make the trip. I really want to be there in person and, you know, hang out with you guys, play some music, go and get some great food, you know, all that kind of stuff. So Mosalem, Al Haggar, Ahmed, and Yassin and Gael and Daniel, everybody here, thank you so much for your time. Thanks to Ray for helping produce this session of Global Connections. Remember, you can follow us at Berkeley Global, and follow us on social media, and connect with us. And we're really looking forward to seeing you at some future sessions. Everybody be well. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.